Greg, President Obama shaking up his cabinet as he gets set to kick off his second term, but three of his top picks could face tough nomination battles. Republican Senator Chuck Hagel, tapped to lead the Pentagon, will have to answer questions about past comments he's made about Israel and gays, while counterterrorism advisor John Brennan, picked to lead the CIA, will have to answer questions about his alleged link to enhanced interrogation techniques during the Bush administration. Meanwhile, Republican senators like Jeff Sessions and Mike Johanns coming out against Jack Lew for Treasury Secretary. Sessions says he believes Lew's 2010 budget testimony before Congress was, quote, the most colossal, fantastical financial misrepresentation in history. Listen.
I'll just have one vote on it, but I do think that the Senate needs to push back against this idea that people can come before our committees and say anything they want to inaccurately and then waltz in 2 years later, want to be promoted to a higher office, the most significant financial office in our country, really in the world, the Secretary of Treasury. And we shouldn't treat that lightly. He needs to be held to account, in my opinion.
So in order to get these nominees appointed, will President Obama have to expend a large amount of political capital? Ford O'Connell is the chairman of the Civic Forum PAC and the former outreach director for John McCain for president. Christy Setzer is the president of New Heights Communications. She was the spokesperson for former Vermont Governor Howard Dean. Good to see both of you.
Good to see you, Arthel.
All righty. Christy, I'm going to start with you today.
Okay.
Should the Senate check their concern for higher disapproval ratings at the door and focus on checks and balances and just go through with tough, thorough questioning during the hearings, even if it causes more political strife?
No, they shouldn't. I would say that what we're seeing now is political theater. It's stupid, and it's what Americans hate, and it's also why Congress has something like a single-digit approval level. The political reality is that Chuck Hagel has something like a 95% chance of getting his nomination through. John Brennan, Jack Lew probably have an even higher percentage than that. What the Republican Party has been doing up to this point, though, is saying that they have a fight with pretty much every single one of President Obama's nominations. Not because they are not qualified enough, not because they're not even conservative enough. We're talking about, Republican nominations here, but just because they are people who've been nominated by the president.
Christy, my friend, I couldn't disagree with you more.
Children play.
Hey, Christy, my friend, I couldn't disagree with you more. The bottom line is President Obama has shown himself to be a combative president in his second term, and he has no interest in bipartisan compromise. And these picks basically show us that he doesn't think that a nuclear Iran is a threat to Israel, and he doesn't seem to think that we need to put in, checks for, spending in our $16.4 trillion debt. The bottom line is, look, the Senate may be, in Congress as a whole, maybe as popular as a cockroach, but I think the American public, the Senate's right to scrutinize it, because the American public needs to know who's going to be running the president and executing the president's policies on day-to-day on fiscal matters and national security. I think this is a good thing, and I think the Senate should definitely scrutinize it.
So then, Ford, you just heard Senator Sessions, a Republican ranking member on the Senate Budget Committee, declaring that Jack Lew must never become Treasury Secretary. How does Lew make it through the Senate hearings?
Well, I think that Lew is going to have to come forward and explain to people how you can stand up in front of Congress and say that the president's budget, which of course we don't really have, and Congress hasn't passed one in 3 years, to say how that doesn't add to our national debt and to our deficit when we're going to be at $20 trillion by 2016. Jack Lew's got a lot to answer for, but at the end of the day, if every Democrat votes for Jack Lew, he only needs 5 Republicans to vote for him. But the key with Senator Sessions is a very measured guy. He's not somebody who flies off the handle. And when he makes a comment like this, I really think that the Senate should pay attention.
And Christy, we're just going to go a little bit down the list here. We're talking about John Brennan, who is the choice to be the next head of CIA. Senator Lindsey Graham is saying the Senate should not confirm any nominee for the CIA until the administration elaborates on the attacks in Benghazi. How do you see this battle playing out, Christy?
I think that John Brennan is actually going to have the easiest time of any of the people that you just mentioned in getting his nomination through. Yes, I think there's going to be a couple tough questions about Benghazi. I think there's going to be a couple tough questions from the left, talking about enhanced interrogation procedures. But ultimately, those were things that happened under the Bush administration. We don't really torture anymore. So I believe that Brennan is going to have a significantly easier time than either Hagel or Jack Lew. At the end of the day, I think all of them, though, their nominations are pretty much going to sail through.
Ford, quickly, you're shaking your head. I have another question, but go ahead and respond.
Yeah, I love it when progressives, were against Bush on drones and Gitmo and everything else, and now that, Brennan's in there to help implement the president's light footprint and less boots on the ground, more drones in the air, they're okay with it. I do think that of the group, I think that Lew's going to have the hardest time, but, with Brennan and Hagel, if they're forthcoming in their confirmation hearings and what comes out about Israel and Iran comes forward, I think they're both going to get confirmed, but I expect a knockout, drag-out fight over Jack Lew.
Okay, well, in terms of approach, how do you think Congress can improve on its ratings in the process? Or is it possible to make a bad approval rating worse? And before you answer, Christy, I'll give you that one, because the president, he has an approval rating of 53.2%. Is there anything in this confirmation process that could possibly tarnish the president's, let's say, glistening reputation that he's currently enjoying?
Sure, it does seem as though Congress has something that they could learn from the president. Let's remember, this is a president who has been twice elected by fairly comfortable margins. One thing that America hates to see is needless fighting for the sake of fighting. The fact is that historically presidents have had the opportunity to choose the people that they want for the cabinet posts with, barring some extremely rare situations, say, Harriet Meyer's nomination to the Supreme Court, that sort of thing. That's probably the last time that we've had a very serious fight over a cabinet pick. So the thing that Congress could learn, I think, is don't fight for the sake of fighting.
Christy, I gave you the first word for it. I'll give you the last word.
Senate Republicans need to do their job. They need to scrutinize the president's picks, carefully and wisely. Don't turn this into kabuki theater, but let's get to the point. The president does not think that Iran is a threat to Israel, and basically he has no interest in cutting spending in our $16.4 trillion debt unless it comes at basically the cost of gutting, the military. And President Obama needs to get serious about structural entitlement reform, and I hope that that's what these hearings really point out.
I'm sure Christy has a lot to say, but unfortunately, Christy, I'm out of time. So Ford is going to get the last word on that one. Ford Acano, good to see you, as well as you, Christy Setzer. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you, Arthel.